We're back with Ian Horowitz, an old friend of mine for about a decade now, who's a Baltimore City firefighter, technician, or engineer, lieutenant, and now retired, doing lots and lots and lots of real estate deals. He's hit on a lot of topics across the board. I miss seeing you once a month when we used to go out drinking, but COVID kind of put a stop to that. So here's Ian. Ian, tell me a little bit about yourself, where you came
Yeah,
from, where you're going.
yeah. I mean, you tell me where you want me to take it back to, but I'm Ian Horowitz with Equity Warehouse. Aaron Foster, close friend of mine, Mike Webb, and Tyler both invested in our most recent deal. So very tight knit group here. So I appreciate you guys having me on. To take it back, or let me start off by saying thank you for saying I retired. However, to all you technical firemen and police and whatever else out there, I quit. But yes, we semi-retired. But with that being said, I mean, we got hired in the city of Baltimore. Dan is my business partner, Dan Matthew. We both got hired in 2007, 2008. We all know what happens in that time frame. We wanted to be big, bad city firemen. I mean, prior to that, we were volunteers. All we wanted to do was be big city firemen. We thought it was the answer. And it was. It's the best job in the world, right? But very quickly did we find out. I think I got out of the academy in the summer. Well, somewhere between the summer and fall. I don't know. Somewhere around 2009, ended summer 2008, 2009 winter. We get out by the mid of 2009. We're getting furloughed. Then the pension problems all across the country between Detroit, you boys out in California really helped accelerate that. Pension problems all across the country. 2011 ish, somewhere in there, they start messing with our pension. Everyone in 12 has Obamacare issues. It's like, dude, what is going on? Right around then, we both turn 30 ish, and our wives want to have kids, and you're like, oh my god, how am I going to do this? And one of the biggest things for me, just looking around the kitchen table, I was like, man, I don't want to be one of these other guys that are sitting here counting on my pension. We were working 2 10-hour days, 2 14-hour nights at that time frame before they switched their schedule. So we would, like every other good fireman or, protective service type field person, we would go out and work before our night works, go work our 4 days off. So we're working 8 days a week. I was like, dude, there's got to be a better way. So in the winter of 2013, 12, 13, somewhere in there, bought my first rental property, not in a very nice neighborhood. Go watch The Wire. I can tell you that's where we worked, and that's where I bought my first property. From there, we graduated. I built a small rental portfolio. Dan was having some financial issues on his side of things, so he started wholesaling to make some cash. 2014, we bought our first property, and it was kind of just, it was a run after that. We can get into it, but as of today, at the time of this recording, we have about 225 residential units between multifamily and single family. We have 100-something thousand square feet of commercial space and just about 500,000 square feet of self-storage in that time frame.
So your first property, we'll talk about The Wire. Their first property was like Sandtown area?
It wasn't in West Baltimore. We worked in West Baltimore. It was actually in East Baltimore, the other side of town. But the heart of East Baltimore, it's in a little section called the 4x4. It's kind of like the last bad neighborhood before it starts to get better. I'll tell you actually what happened. I was at work one day. I'm riding the medic, and this other buddy of mine, Chad, he's like, yo, dude, like, you really want to get in real estate? Because I was landscaping on the side at the time, and I was like, dude, I can't be working like this all the time. This is insane. And coincidentally, my in-laws, they sell and service outdoor power equipment. Well, one of their guys came in and said, yeah, I'm not buying anything anymore. And I started buying real estate a few years ago. Now I got 30 rental properties. So I sold my landscaping business and I'm done. And I was like, well, how'd you do it? And he's like, well, I did it through Section 8 rentals. I was like, oh my God. So coincidentally, my buddy Chad a few weeks later was like, hey man, I'm going to this event. We're going to talk about real estate. The lady's having a guy present on the 100 or whatever. He had a few hundred rental properties and they're all Section 8. I was like, oh my God, this is it. Right. So like, I roll in the door and I'm thinking it's all about going to be all about real estate. Well, it turned out to be one of those stupid multi-level marketing meetings. And the guy that was supposed to present was like, this is stupid. Let's go to the bar. I was like, I know how to do that. Firemen know how to drink. So went to the bar, had a good time. few weeks later after that, I wound up buying my first house, 3-bedroom, 1 bath in the 4x4 section of Baltimore. Those that are listening from Baltimore, 3200 block of Lindale Avenue. I paid $20,000. I sweat equitied it. I don't know if I did it right, but it got done. Put about 30, 40 grand into it. Was all in around 50, 55. And we got $1,250 rent from a Section 8 program. And that was like, it was like crack, man. It was like $600 a month cash flow, maybe more on this little ass house. And I was like, yo, dude, like, this is it. Because at that time, like when we were working callbacks, overtime, whatever you guys call it, we were making like, I wasn't even like my top pay yet. I think like a callback would get me like $300. I was like, yo, I could go to work or I could have this one house. Like, let's go. And there really wasn't overtime then. I was like, man, it's extra $600. This is great. Not to mention, I'm grinding on the side at like $12 an hour, $15 an hour, landscaping in the super hot days and go and ride the medic unit at night. I'm like, this is dumb. And 3 months later, I bought house number 2, and man, I'm telling you, it was like the crack academic for me, man. I was like, let's go. So
a lot of people don't know is that you wrote a book called Subsidized. You and Dan Matthew, your partner. So if you guys don't know, they gave me this nifty little hat the last investment group meeting that we did. So Dan and Ian, there you go, Subsidized. Dan and Ian wrote a book a couple of years ago called Subsidized. It kind of highlights how to use subsidized housing or government-funded housing or Section 8 housing to pay your mortgage for you. But you have it down to a science in Baltimore, like how many bed and bath, how many in this neighborhood, how much you'll get in return, how much you'll be into it for, what your mortgage will be. So you kind of backdoored and backwagered into funding these deals and finding them, right?
Yeah, I mean, obviously day one, we didn't know what the hell we were doing. None of us know what we're doing, right? And it's just, I was talking to someone the other day. I was talking to one of our investors, and I said, you know what separates us? Because a lot of people are like, oh, you got automatically, like, they think, okay, you're blue collar, like, we like you. Because most of the real estate industry is a lot of white collar, people just throwing money at problems. I was like, look, we're firemen, right? Like, so what it was is that we were dumb enough to go back to the well, right? Like, you can't leave the scene until the fire's out. Right? Like we're dumb enough to stay there for 24 hours until this fire goes out. It's the same thing as like we're dumb enough to go to the well over and over and over again. That created a system and a process. My first 10 deals, dude, I couldn't tell you what a P&L and a balance sheet was. I couldn't tell you which way was up, but I was willing to take those strides. And then as we started to create, as we realized we had a knack for finding deals and constructing deals, we were able to build the other side of the business, which was management, tenant placement, and really zero in on those types of things.
So Ian, you kind of had that light bulb moment where it's like, hey, I'm trading a lot of time for not a whole lot of money here, right? And part of your story really is similar to mine. And that's where I kind of had that light bulb where it's like, hey, I can go work overtime. And like you said, I got hired very similar time frame than you and went through the financial uncertainty directly thereafter, right?
Right.
And that wasn't a very comfortable feeling, right? So every firefighter I know for the most part has some sort of secondary job. You said landscaping. If I had $1 for every firefighter that's got landscaping business on the side, right? So it's one of the things, and that's great revenue. And one of the things I kind of always ask when people talk about like, oh, you do rentals, right? Or they think you're a realtor or whatever. And you kind of take that 30 seconds to kind of educate them. You just ask them, how many sources of income do you have? And a lot of times it's like, what? That simple, basic question. How many sources of income do you have? Well, I got this job, right? So that being like one of those first questions, like, all right, that makes me think a little bit differently than, like you said, you don't want to be one of those guys that's just all their eggs are in one basket, that pension, right?
Yeah. So there was this guy, he was out at A-Truck, Lieutenant Maru. I remember sitting around the kitchen table, and this guy, I mean, when I came in, the guy probably had 40 years. He left with like 51 or 52 years. True. And that guy, I mean, at the end of his career, it's like, what are you doing, Lieutenant? Like, I don't get it. He's like, I'll be fine. I got the pension. I'm like, well, first off, I don't know, but like, even that, I don't want to work here for 40 years. It's a young man's game. Like, we just had, and I say but the city just had 3 firemen killed that are our age group, right? Like 3 line of duty deaths on a routine fire that we're used to going to, man. And like, I don't know if like subconsciously some of those things crossed my mind, but I could tell you this much. I always said, well, if I'm laying in bed, how can I produce income, right? If I'm stuck on a fire, you can't have a service business. You can't have a service business as a fireman or a cop. What if you get hauled over? What if you break your leg? What if you get dismembered and whatever? I mean, we're in an interesting line of work here, right? And I think that's where a lot of this motive came from of when I didn't have kids and I didn't have family, fine, like I'll go lay it all on the line. But, like responsibilities change as soon as you get married and have kids and all these other things. And, a lot of people were asking like, was it the right decision? And at the time, I was a little conflicted. But after this past week, respectfully, I know that we made the right decision to remove ourselves and that we created the correct lifestyle. And it's really like you were just alluding to is like a lot of people are like, well, I want to replace my W-2 income with passive income. It's like, I want to replace it, and I'm going to continue to make investments to create a revenue stream that's going to allow me to leave my W-2 job. And that really came to light over the past few weeks.
Yeah, understandably. So you obviously have gone one direction with it, which is just like to the stratosphere with real estate investing. Whenever you were getting started, that first 1, 2, 10 properties, and you went Section 8, and maybe this is to the guy or girl that's got a couple years on, they know they need to do something, but they have no intentions of retiring and growing a wicked beard and owning 500,000 square feet of this and that, right? They just want to do something. If you could boil down like, hey, if that's the person you're talking to, what would you tell them about getting into real estate?
I would say that you need to find a way that it's not a burden to you. Okay. And what I mean is we talk to a lot of high income W-2 earners when we're talking about investing, right? And even you guys, it's like, well, it's a way to diversify your money. In the same sense, I would always ask, well, how, and especially the high W-2 income earners that usually are like day to day, always selling or doing something and they can't attend to a service call, is how you're going to navigate some potential issues. And obviously the industry we come from, we always got plan A, B, C, D, SOPs, everything else. So some of these things should be an easy answer. So step number one to me is find an asset class that works for you. If you only want to flip one house a year and you want to make an extra 20, 30, 40 grand, that's fine. Nobody says you have to go and do it at scale. Do it because you want to do it, because you enjoy doing it, and then it's on your own terms, right? It's something, if it's going to be a hobby for you, then okay, go ahead and treat it like a hobby. But if you want to treat it like a revenue stream and something that's going to be additional income to your family budget, it's going to be a legacy, it's going to be whatever it is for you, then treat it like a business. So, spend some time researching what you want to do. Only reason I went to a rougher part of the city, I didn't have a lot of money, right? And I didn't really know what hard money was. I didn't know how to raise capital from investors. I knew I had 15 grand in the bank and I could get a loan. And I knew how to deal with the people of the street in the most respectful way. But that was the neighborhoods we worked in. So like working around certain demographics and getting robbed and whatever else, like at your rehab project, okay, I can deal with that. I have the tolerance for that. So find an investment that meets your needs. It's definitely stuff we talk about with our investors as well, is like, hey man, like this investment's going to be passive for you. We're going to do all the dirty work and hopefully it's just a revenue stream for you. And that's what works for people that earn a lot of money. On the flip side, if you're going to be the active investor, make sure that time you put into it is worth your money, because you probably can work a callback. You can go work a shift swap. You can go get a job at the hospital being a nurse or whatever other jobs are out there that I know a lot of guys like to work and earn income. So make sure it's worth your time, energy, and effort.
So Ian, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think one of the turning points for you guys was when you got hired, you had a 20-year retirement. And
correct.
Then you sued the city, and then they were like, okay, well, if you have 14 years or less, now you have to do 25 years. And now you're like, well, we got hired at this. So was that a turning point for you guys for start to push forward on more deals?
Well, I assume we're talking to mostly first responders here. So yes, it was a massive kick in the dick, right? Like, because here you are, you come in the front door, and we all know every city's effed up out there. I don't care whether you're in, and I know Webb's union president very well, but I know you guys got your own problems out there, and that's a county jurisdiction about an hour from the city. And I know Tyler's dealing with stuff out in Cali, right? Like, and DC, they just get whatever they want because they protect whoever the president is, right, wrong, or indifferent. But they get whatever they want, right? But in the same sense, it's like, yeah, dude, it was a massive kick in the dick. Here we are, busting your ass. The first 2-3 years, I think this is kind of how I break down careers. And sorry, I talk a lot, guys, but I'm that guy around.
No, you're good.
Table. But it's like your first 5 years, you're like, man, best job in the world. Like, I can't believe I'm doing this. And then 5 to 10, you're like, all right, like it's still the best job in the world, but like, how am I going to afford these things? And like 10 to 15, you're like, fuck, dude, like I'm in this job, and then from there on out, right? Like, and I think everyone goes through the same thing. Well, I'm in 0 to 5, and boom, like right before my 5th year, they kick us. Maybe it was 3rd, 4th year. They're like, bam, kick in the dick. They take that away, and I was like, dude, they did that overnight, and then we fought it for 10 years in court, right? And then we lost it in court. Who's to say they don't do it tomorrow? And they just set a precedence nationwide that they can literally change this thing, and it's a city charter. You know what the mayor said at the time? She said, rules are made to be, it's just, or something along the lines of like, rules, it's just a rule, or it's just a law, it's meant to be broken, and if you don't like it, fight me in court. And guess what? We fought her in court with the firefighters union, the officers union, the retirees union, and the police union. And we all spent millions of dollars, all of our money that we put towards this pension case, robbed the Widows and Orphans Fund, all these other things, and we lost it, man. Like just like that, lost it. It's like, yo, dude, like, what happens if I got to year 22 and they're like, oh, by the way, now it's 30 years, go F off. Like, and we know we would lose, and you can't fight that. It's not like the volunteer firehouse where you go down and vote them out. Let's go, next man up.
Yeah.
Like, you're stuck.
Yeah, that is knock on wood. That I don't even know where to start with that one, but I can definitely see where you start to have that like jaded look, and it's like, all right, instead of looking for an additional revenue source, now you're looking for a way out. You know,
just in case, like, grow your beard out.
Those guys started leaving. I mean, because same thing, their pension, they got screwed over, and a lot of guys started leaving the job. And to your point, Ian, you don't want to be. I mean, we're all still fairly young where you can do the job, but if you're 53, 55 and they yank that chain from you and you have no backup plan, that would be a super scary position to be in. And I think that's a reality now, where 20 years ago, your pension was rock solid in most areas. It's like, hey, I'm going to work my 20, my 25 or 30, punch my ticket, and I'm good and I'm living on easy street. But now with all that uncertainty, it's like, yeah, if they can do that, especially with the way the municipalities and counties view that as, hey, this is meant to be broken. What they're doing now is we're all trying to take some type of self-control over what our future will look like.
Yeah, I think California's teacher union was like one of the worst ones during that time frame, especially I think Northern California, right? They had massive issues going on during that. And it's like, not only are the teachers unions, fire unions, like all these like public pension systems are going under, Bethlehem Steel locally here, private entities, GMC, the auto workers, like things are vanishing overnight, right? Like, and the other thing is, to go back kind of to Webb's question of like getting involved in real estate, it's diversification. Your pension's tied up in the stock market, your deferred comp's tied up in the stock market, 401ks, and we can't really self-direct from our position. And I know police and military can't either, that it's like, God damn, everything's in the market, and if everything's shut off tomorrow, you got no tangible assets other than a trading account that says you own a piece of paper of a company, but what the hell is that, right?
So everything about real estate investing and investing in general is about options. You want to have other options just in case. Like if I got hurt and I got face retirement again, or if they push my pension, or some guys right now is you have to get the COVID shot. Like that's their turning point. So like having the options is the best way to do it. But your options have been syndication, flipping, buy and holds. Like you're at the point now, like I think at the height you were doing 30 houses a month or something crazy like that.
Yeah, we would usually have like 15 houses under construction. And again, dude, some of it's timing of the market. Some of it is just, some of it was chest beating, typical fireman. But yeah, like a lot of it was just like growing and earning while you're learning. And, like in the market that we were in at that time frame to 2014 to 2019 ish, you could buy a house and it was going like this and you'd fuck up, but like it's worth $25,000 if you just wait a week, right? Like, okay, so that was a good learning lesson. Right now, if someone's trying to get involved in real estate today in 2022, right now, the current market status, you screw up, like that might be it. We might be at the top, and I'm not a big market predictor. And a lot of this just grew from like us just kind of grinding it out and like seeing what we like, what we don't like. And as we we started to grow. It's like, okay, well, we're really good at day to day. Like what we're really good at is we're operators, right? Like we can go out, we can build properties, we can find deals, we can structure them, and we can finance them. The day to day operations, we can do it. Not in love with it, obviously. One of the best skills that most firemen, police officers, EMTs, paramedics, we deal with people every day in the most stressful situation. So usually property management's kind of easy for us, but we found out it takes away from everything else that we like doing. So we said, well, if we syndicate deals and we find the proper managers, we can pull the triggers that we want to pull. But we didn't learn any of that without doing single family houses really, really, really well. That's where we got our start. That's what made us tick for a long time, whether we liked it or not. But it was way easier to cut our teeth there and allow us to grow into bigger and better things because we found out what we like to do or not do, you know?
So the long distance was actually what, West Virginia? Was a White Horse?
Oh, no. Our first long distance deal was 34 units out in Ranson, West Virginia. And that was after we bought that January 31st, 2020, right? Because we all know what happens 2 months later. First deal we ever bought out of state. It was the first time we ever relinquished control of management. We didn't know what here we are. We have 100 single family houses at this point with, like 20, 30,000 square feet of commercial space. And we've always self-managed. We've always built everything ourselves. And, Mike probably knows the market. It's not far from Frederick, but it's like, man, we're going out to like this little ass, tiny ass town in West Virginia, which is about an hour from our office. And, we looked at all the downsides versus the upsides. But going out there, man, it was an eye-opening experience. If we never did that deal, we would have never bought the 76 unit in Baltimore. We would have never bought our first storage deal. We would have never been able to relinquish control. A lot of the times, most of us are tinkerers, right? Like, you always fuck around with the fire truck. You're trying to get the engine right because you don't want it to go to the shop. Well, we find out that happens on a lot of our properties. You start tinkering with stuff. And yes, we have pride of ownership, but in the same sense, honestly, my stuff out in Ranson, West Virginia, my expenses are exponentially less than the stuff I have here locally because my manager handles it and it's at arm's length. And I don't go there and tinker with it and be like, oh, you know what? Like, let's replace that light fixture because we don't like how it looks. And this is the long-term goal. And our maintenance guy has nothing to do. Right. So I think there are some benefits to doing those things,
So you started with subsidized rentals. So Section 8, obviously gets a little bit of a negative connotation. The first time, I always joke whenever I first started getting into real estate, the guys around the firehouse were just so supportive, and didn't bust my chops at all. Right. Of course not. Like it was.
Oh man, you guys had nice guys out there. God damn.
No, they affectionately called me slumlord because they had no flipping clue what was going on other than I probably rented to nothing but a bunch of crackheads. Right.
Yeah.
So you kind of alluded to why you picked Section 8 and what would you say to the folks that's like Section 8's horrible? Obviously we know it's not, but like, why would somebody choose to do Section 8 versus fair market rent or free housing, whatever you call it, wherever you're at?
Well, let's just get into the monetary side of things. Screw everything else, right? Because we all know all the guys talk shit around the firehouse kitchen table. And I was usually the leader of the pack, stirring the pot. But you know what? Like, I was working in West Baltimore at that time, where the wire happened, like Foster was alluding to. Where they depicted most of it, right? And we would go in houses and they'd be like, you really want to own something like this? I'm like, this is not a Section 8 house. This is a shitty landlord. Then you go to the same house in the worst neighborhood that has granite countertops and laminate floors and it's very well put together. I'm like, this is a Section 8 house. So take that notion out of your mind. Number one, your houses are going to be built however you want to build them. Now, on the monetary side of things, one of the most eye-opening experiences, and we always knew this all along, but when COVID hits, we went through and looked. Something like 88% of our portfolio was subsidized by the government at that point. We knew our bills were being paid. We knew the mortgages could be serviced. Yes, there was a lot of uncertainty during that time frame, but in the same sense, you know what? Like, we knew dollar for dollar that we were good and we could go to bat with anybody else because we knew our rent was coming in the door. I knew I could service my taxes, my mortgages, and you know what? If nothing else, on the other side of this, I'll still have my house. Whereas a lot of people were running scared. Specifically in Baltimore, there's a lot of houses that were super nice that were turned into rentals. If you go look them up, on like the permits or searches or anything. 9 times out of 10, they were built in 06, 07. They couldn't sell them as a flip. The market tanks, and then they wound up keeping them as a rental, and they would make them subsidized. But yeah, subsidy rentals, most of it's the monetary side of things. There's a lot of good checks and balances, especially as a new investor. You have home inspections to pass for move-ins, annual basis. There's accountability, depending what program you deal with. Usually not a city agency, but there's some sort of accountability for the tenant side of things. Not to mention, dude, it's like anything else. Again, we deal with people of the street in the worst situation that they can be in. It's the same thing, man. There really is the people that truly need the subsidized program, and I have never pulled a blue lever in my life, so you can tell where I stand politically. There are literally people out there that need this to survive, right? Like one of my cleanest, most respectful tenants, I said, man, Mr. Carroll, I said, he lived right up the street from where I bought my first rental because, I was like, oh, first rental in the ghetto work. Let me go buy the second rental in the ghetto that'll work. So my first 2 houses were in the same neighborhood. I said, damn, Mr. Carroll, I said, your house is clean, man. Like, can you go talk to my other tenants? He said, yeah, tell them to go live in an 8x10 cell for the last 20 years, and they'll have respect for their house. Guy didn't have a TV, nothing. What it was is we had a tenant from Prisoner's Aid who got out after his sentence and was starting his life over. And he said, I am so grateful that I have this house and that they're assisting me. And he worked and he kept his house in order because he knew the value of it. And sure, we have shitty tenants. Everybody has shitty tenants, but I have shitty market tenants. I have shitty Section 8 tenants. I have great Section 8 tenants, and I have great market tenants. And it's just it's the nature of the beast. It's all how you enforce your lease.
Yeah, absolutely. And you kind of touched on it. Like the first time I did Section 8, of course, I was concerned. I was like, because all I had to reference was the horror stories, right? But then I realized after I had got them in there that they were employed and they were one of those folks that just genuinely needed assistance, right? And at the time, I don't know what it currently is, the local housing authority, the wait list was capped at 5,000. So the wait list was capped. They weren't even accepting anybody for the wait list. And once you got on it, it was a 3 to 5 year wait. So once they got a voucher, basically the approval to rent the home, they had to follow the lease, because if they didn't, I could contact their basically caseworker and they could end up losing their voucher. Well, if they lost their voucher, they had to go to the back of the line. Well, you couldn't even get in line at that point. So I had a lot more teeth in my enforcement versus Joe Schmo, who's going to just roll from property to property every 2-3 years. So you hit the nail on the head. Like, regardless of whether it's subsidized or non-subsidized, good people are good people, bad people are bad people, right? Yep. And that's why it's just super important to do your screening, regardless of who's paying the rent or how it's getting paid.
I think what we should do is go set up a bunch of tents out there in California and see if we can get Section 8 vouchers in there.
I'm sure somebody's
there's already too many tents out there right now.
There's too many tents out there. All right,
we're full.
We'll put nicer tents up and charge less. So are you still looking to kind of stick with the subsidized rent or route rather, or you've alluded to, you've kind of segued into some different asset classes? And
so we've gotten, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but we got very good at single family. We had it run its course. Summer of 2019, we personally were having trouble finding inventory down by the stadiums in Baltimore. It's a little town, it's a little section called Pigtown, Washington Village. Depends what side of the street you're on. If you're a new guy, you're Washington Village. If you're an old school Baltimore guy, right? Like it's Pigtown.
Gentrification, bro.
What's that?
Gentrification.
Yeah, you know all about that in DC and in LA, right? But with that being said, we were buying shells for anywhere from $5 to $10,000. By summer 2019, those same shells, I shouldn't have done any work. They were trading at 60, 70 grand. I'm like, you guys are insane. But the rent stayed at $1,250. You couldn't afford to do it. I'm like, how are you guys making money? This doesn't make any sense to me, right? So we kind of hit the pause button on single family. But I'll tell you what we did was, in that time frame from 2014-ish till 2019, that 5-year run, we flipped a ton of houses, built a bunch of houses, a rental portfolio. We never concentrated on operations. Financially, we never concentrated on art books and some other goofy stuff, tax understanding and all that stuff. So it killed me because I'm like the growth, like I got to go. I need the next cool deal. Like I like the vision and growing. Dan is much more of an operator. That's why we work very well together. And we hit the pause button and we worked on our business every single day. And it killed me. It killed me. I'll be honest. I was like ready to, it's like, F this, I'm going to go do my own thing. Like I had a struggle with it, but in the same sense, it was the best thing we ever did because we refined our operations. Well, what happened in that time frame is we get our buddy comes to us, Pete. Aaron knows him. He's not a fireman, just a good. He has a good corporate job, and he's been trying to exit. And he's like, "Hey, man, I got this 34 unit building out in West Virginia." I said, "Pete, you got the right connections. Go do it yourself." Nah, man, you showed us the business. I want to do it with you. We could have never, and we wound up doing the deal together. We could have never done that deal with Pete on that unit, on that building, had we never refined our own operation to truly understand what we were doing on an everyday basis and understanding what we did well and what we didn't do well. And that allowed us to grow from there. So currently our single families are up for sale. A portion of the
package deal or
package deal
selling a chunk.
Yep. About 32 of them are up for sale right now as a package deal to see where that goes. We're getting that off because the day-to-day management, what we found is that small piece of the portfolio is the 80-20 rule, right? Like it makes 20% of our money, but it's 80% of the problems type deal. And we've begun in the same time prior to selling this, we did an apartment building, 34 units. We did a 76-unit apartment building that you guys know about. That was a sweetheart deal. We bought some storage. We bought a commercial property. What we found out is a lot of guys were following us and watching us, and we were able to raise capital from our friends and family to start doing these bigger deals. And we could all make exponentially more money, create more legacy, create more generational wealth for not only us, but our friends and family. And mind you, most of our investors are firemen, cops, nurses, and close family. That's our investor base. I'm not on the internet out there advertising like Grant Cardone and trying to take any $1,000 I can get. It sounds like fun, but it's also a lot of work. But out of all this, we found that doing these bigger deals, because we have the conduit to do them, produces more income for us. And it's the same amount at this point in our careers. It's the same.
Ian,
you hit the mute, buddy, or talking with your hands. You whapped it right out.
I'm very excited. Hold on. Muted, bro.
Yeah, you guys.
There you go.
All right. I knocked the cord out. But anyway, it's not like at work. You go to a warehouse buyer. It's exponentially more work than it is to do a single family house, right, or a row home, right? It takes way more work to put a warehouse out than it does a single family. Well, actually, it's the opposite in real estate. To do a large multifamily or storage deal takes the same amount of work that it does for me to do a single family house. And I was like, well, why am I grinding out and doing 30, 40 single family deals when I could just do one big storage deal and have the path set up for the next year? So
we talked about this a while back, is like so getting into real estate, you knew a row house is 15 to 20 feet wide, 30 to 40 feet deep, 2 or 3 stories tall. You know how much you're going to spend per square foot to have each item done, because you guys would go down to the studs. So once you figured that system out, you can kind of transition that and take that same square footage idea into the next area or next arena. And then you're like, okay, well, now that that's done, what else is there? I can take this entire thought process and put it into an apartment building, because it's the same thing. It's just a whole bunch of little row houses inside of, or little living spaces inside of one big roof. So then you took that thought concept, and then you're like, well, now let's look at commercial space. There's less moving parts. There's less things that can break. There's less toilets. There's less pull chains. There's less knobs. There's less windows. There's less live loads in the property that can be damaged. So then you transitioned into storage space, and you're on your third right storage unit facility.
Yeah, we have a few. We'll leave it at that. But yeah, it's a little more than 3 because we bought some portfolios. But
okay.
Yeah, before we get to there, is like, to do a multifamily deal, the case management might be exponentially more, but the CapEx could potentially be less, right? Because you have one family in one single family home, but now you got 76 roofs to worry about, whereas I only have 6 roofs to worry about, but I have 76 people to worry about at one location, right? So yeah, there's crossover there, and don't let Foster just let you guys sit here and think it was like, oh, you went from single family and just jumped right into multifamily, dude. There was it was 2 years of underwriting deals while we're still doing single family shit. I'm like, I don't get how guys are making money. I don't get how guys are making money, right? I never found that deal that made sense. And then boom, 2 landed on our lap back to back, right? And that's the only way that I figured it out. I was like, okay, so all those other deals were really shit. And what I found out was those guys were just making fees through acquisition, asset management. There was really no good bones to it, that they were just ripping, I don't want to say ripping their investors off, but they were getting money up front and waiting till the end till they sell it. That's why all these guys have to sell these deals, and they're waiting, versus us. We're looking for true cash flowing assets, and we look for our investors that want to work with us side by side to produce cash flow, right? And by the way, Webb and Tyler, since you guys are in the storage deal, I was running the numbers last night. We are making money, so that's why. So
always a plus.
Yeah.
So Ian, I know we got to wrap it up here shortly, but would you be able to just touch what was that's a big shift, right? To go from, hey, I got my first 2 houses in the ghetto to now I'm got a lot of this going on. What was the mindset shift to go from hey, I'm just some guy flipping a couple houses here when I'm not at the firehouse, to multi-million-dollar business operator, raising funds and whatnot? Because I think that's something that's one of those things that interests me. What is that shift that I start to see? Hey, I can do that too. I'm not just a fireman, or because I think that's what most of us struggle with. I can sit there and I buy little boxes, big boxes, I fix them up, I sell them. Pretty simple, right? But that shit that goes on up here is the hardest part, I think, to wrap your hands around.
I would personally say that it was valuing your time as a human being, right? And it's not just monetary. Oh, I'm worth $500 an hour, $1,000 an hour. It's really, well, you go to work, and yes, it is the best job in the world. I love the guys. You can't replace their adrenaline rush. It's better than any drug you can have. Not better than sex, but it's really better than basically anything else in the world to go out and run into a fire.
You can have their clothes on.
Yeah, exactly. And with that being said, it's man, that's all cool, but we're swapping time for money, versus saying, when I'm sitting at work and we're taking 25 runs, and I'm like, dude, this is stupid. I'm making however much a minute,
less than minimum wage.
Living in my house, right? That's the monetary side of things, and that's an eye-opening experience. But the bigger eye-opening experience that I don't think a lot of guys do is what your life purpose. When we left, it was a massive identity issue, because I struggled with this for probably 5 years. Luckily, Dan kept me working there for a little bit longer because he grew with people. But it's really just valuing and I'm not really a touchy-feely kind of guy on this stuff, but is if you could see my leg, it's really shaking bad because I'm uncomfortable, but it's really just valuing your time and who you are. And dude, there's life after the fire department. There's family. And when we switched, I think a big thing for us in Baltimore was when we switched to 24-hour shifts, there was, and I'm Jewish, but there was always Christmas. There was always a birthday. There was always, at some point during the day, you could celebrate that and enjoy it. When we switched to 24-hour shifts, man, you're at the firehouse for 24 hours on Christmas, on New Year's, on 4th of July, getting your dick kicked in, man. And you're sitting in there going, man, my kids are at home. And I don't know what you guys work, but I know the West Coasters, dude, they're doing 48-hour shifts. I was talking to my buddy from Stockton who came out, and he's like, yeah, we do 48 hours. Sometimes we get held for 96. And I'm like, there's no way, dude. There's life other than the fire department, and not being treated. And I think the fire department does expose it because of the military background of just do your job, don't say a word, and don't complain about it. I'm like, well, this is the stupidest shit I've ever seen. I'm not in control of my own destiny. Why are we going out and knocking on these doors? Just the dumb stuff that we all do. Why are we doing it like this? I just want to be in control. And I mean, Mike, you're an officer, and I left as an officer, even though I never worked a day in the field, but it's we're not in control, right? And I think as you grow as a business person, that really starts to eat at you. And I think that's where my mind shift really started to come, is like, as we made more money, as we were getting better in our business, realizing what we had control of over here versus what we didn't have control at work. It was like, it really started to eat at me personally. I think that's where our mind shift changed to say, all right, well, let's figure out what this business looks like. How are we going to grow? It's not, look, we sit down and have budgets and we have discussions. We have a goal where we want our monetary side of things to be, but that also comes with a lot of business development and other things that, I'm not sitting there right now, every little thing that has to get done, but we have broad goals and we go out and complete them. I don't know. I hope that answers it. And like I said, I was really nervous because my leg was shaking.
I appreciate it.
So Ian, a long time ago, like we had this discussion, like, and this was weighing on your mind for a long time. Like, do I leave the fire department? This is after you guys lost the lawsuit. You're like, this weighed on you for a long time. We had a discussion about it, and it's like, at what point do you value your time and your free time more? And is the fire department or police department or nursing or whatever standing in the way of you making money and enjoying your life more, and having more free time for things that are important? Not saying the fire department isn't important, because it's obviously been a big benefit for all of us, but at the same time, once you gain your own control and take your own power back in your own hands, it's just a different mindset altogether.
None of us would be where we are today without the fire department. We would never force our hand to do what we need to do, right? But I don't know, man. It's just like, it was really hard. There was something else I was going to say, but I forgot.
Once you see some guys getting injured in the job and getting retired with, pennies in the dollar, or guys, our last 2 line of duty deaths, I was at both of them, and both of them were friends of mine. And I know you guys just had 3, one in California on a dumpster fire. It's like, I love my job. Like I got a lot of great friends, a lot of great memories. Like, we have stories to tell, we have bullshit to spew, but at the same time, like, if we're making more money somewhere else, why is this? It's a quality of life thing. So
that's
what's
what
your quality of life going to be?
Yeah, well, and that's what I was going to say is, right, like, define success. We all define success by how much money we have, what kind of car you drive. Luckily, the 4 of us on here are all wearing hoodies and beards, and we're good, right? But, like, there's success other than the monetary side of things, and you don't start to realize that thing until you're a kid. For me personally, until I had kids, to realize that, like, there's more than just money, and not being able to define that success because you're constrained by the job. And then, what does it look like from there? And part of that defining success is, like, we just had a line of duty deaths, and I don't want to take anything away from what happened and how they were honored. However, some of the things that happened from the leadership side of things, and I'm not tearing up, I swear to God, but what happened from the leadership side of things, looking at it, is like, if that didn't show you that we're nothing more than a fucking number on their board, I don't know what does. And that scares me. It's not what we all put this job onto a pedestal to be. Me personally, there's still a lot of notoriety to it, but in the same sense, there's like, you're just a number, man. Like, I broke my ankle right before I left. I broke my ankle in April of, 21. And I left in September of 21. And I broke my ankle. And it's like, yo, dude, you break your ankle. Next, it's like, all right, the boys like, they still text you, and you're in the text groups because you're not off the shift yet. And then I promote and whatever. It's like, I don't know, man. Like, life goes on. And it's like, I'm down at PSI, or Public Service Infirmary. And it's like, you're just a number on the board. And, like, you have an issue, nobody gives a shit. You can't get to the right person in the command staff because our department's just big enough, but it's also just small enough that, like, everybody knows everybody, but you can't call that person because it's just big enough because you're crossing the chain of command. And it's like, dude, you're nothing more than a goddamn number on their board. And I don't know, man, like, I don't want to give Edzo credit, but, like, his speech at the funeral was really good. I'm not a Union fan, if you guys can't tell, but his speech was really good. And, like, whether he was being genuine or not, you felt genuine. When the mayor and the fire chief got up there, it was like they were going through the motions. There was no emotion. I mean, Christ, 12 hours after these guys died, like, you had all day to get the street name right. You had all day to get the firefighters' names right, and you go and screw that up. And nobody but us as the firemen know this. But the whole point is you jack that whole thing up, man. You don't give a I don't want to curse on your show, but you know what I mean. You don't give a flying fuck of what's going on, and these guys are nothing more than a pawn on your little chess game, and you're just trying to protect the king and the queen. And I think that's where a lot of things mentally changed for me over that time frame. And it wasn't that. It was other things that happened in that time frame, but that's where a lot of the mind shift comes from. And maybe my love language is like terms of endearment and presence and stuff. But either way, the thing is that those are big things, man. Have a deep thought about it.
Yeah, it sounds like
that genie back in the bottle too. I think.
What was that?
It's hard to put that genie back in the bottle too. Once you start thinking about that stuff, when you were talking, it made me think. I had never spent 4th of July with my kids since they were born for like the last 7 or 8 years. And my buddy said, "Hey, I'll work it for you." And to your point, you don't want to like be like one of those guys. I'm like, "Oh no, dude, I'm good. That's my shift. I'll work it."
Right.
And she said, "What are you talking about? You've never had 4th of July with your kids." Yep. And I was like, "Oh, damn." So I did it, and I was looking around. And I was like, "Dude, this is crazy that I have never spent this holiday." And it's 4th of July, but I mean, it is what it is. I'm like, I've never spent 4th of July with them. And I started thinking, we do miss a lot. You get so used to it. It's just part of your day to day. And then ever since then, those little things add up. It's like, oh, the birthday, I was recalled. You missed the birthdays and stuff like that. And it is such a fun job. And like you said, it's the most fun you can have with your clothes on. But those little things like my daughter's birthday, whatever, son's birthday, anniversaries, whatever, you're never getting those back, dude. It's hard. It's a weird shift once that comes out.
Yeah, the other thing is like we all put this job on a pedestal. I'm sure everyone here on this podcast right now, this is all you ever wanted to do, and then you go and do this job. And it's like, yeah, it is the best job in the world, but then like all the BS that surrounds it, you're like, man, like I just want to zone that out, and you can't. And then the identity crisis comes. That was the biggest thing for us leaving. And I don't want this to be about, go do real estate and leave your job. Go do real estate because you want to do real estate. You want to create financial freedom for yourself. And if this is what you choose to do, this is the struggle that I had as I was coming up. So in the end, man, I think you should just do what's right for you and your family to create a proper financial journey for yourself.
Ian's one of the tribe, though. Like you reach out and help other people who are still in the fire department. Like you still promote, think about it this way. Like, let me help you invest here. Like there's still ways that you're helping guys in the department. Like you're not turning your back on the guys. And that's what it feels like. A lot of guys, when they leave or they retire, like they feel like they're returning their back and their identity is changing. But that's not the case. It's just you are changing into a different mindset in your lifetime. So you still want to have those relationships with them if they allow it, or if you want them. But it's a different mindset. That's one of the things that people got to realize is that you can go be like, you still do brotherhood buffs. Like you still buff fire trucks.
What? Huh?
Yeah. What? Yeah. Like, so like,
never heard of her.
In like
Print collar.
Yeah. You're still involved in the fire department in one way or the other. And if you want to, you can go be, a volunteer fireman somewhere in the county if you ever want to go back to it.
No, I like my beard, so I think I'm going to be good on that. But one of my friends,
you go back to Pennsylvania and sell hoagies and do bingos, man.
Yeah,
a beard like that, you could be chief.
Yeah, I could be in Amish country and I'll be good. But one of my friends' wives, he said, I was telling everybody I'm having this struggle, and she's like, you know what? Do you ever think if you left, like you would motivate one other person to go do the right thing for them or their family, whatever it may be, but like you could be a role model? And I was like, no. And that was like probably 6 months before I left. Then I left, and I would say literally like the next day, everyone's like, holy shit, I can't believe you did it. How'd you do it? Like, I'm super inspired. I've been thinking about this for a long time, man. Like, a lot of it's just like you were saying, Mike, like, and Foster is like, it's just a mind shift thing. And like Tyler was saying, man, once it comes out, it's hard to put away. But like I said, in the end, it's not about this. I don't want this show to become, oh, well, I got to quit my job because Ian said so. What it is that create the financial freedom that allows you to have your own journey and do what you want, however you decide to do that. You
don't want to retire and have to work part-time as a Walmart greeter. That's the thing. Like, you want to have options.
Yep.
Yeah. So, well, I know, Ian, you're on a little bit of a time crunch. So why don't we start wrapping this up? And clearly we're going to have you back on, dive a little bit deeper into some of these topics. But yeah, man, I think that's whoever said that to you that's a valid observation, because it is certainly inspiring to me, like to see somebody that was riding a medic unit in West Baltimore, now syndicating deals all over the Eastern Seaboard. And I always joke like, hey man, don't take my advice. I'm just a fireman. Like,
Yep.
I say it kind of tongue in cheek, but like, I personally think firemen, first responders as a whole, like, are some of the smartest guys I know. They don't ever give themselves enough credit for it. You know, like I always joke they could build a spaceship out of like a pack of gum and a Swiss
Medical
Army
tape.
knife. Yeah. Like,
Yep.
like think about it, man. We all know that guy. It's like, oh, I fixed it. And you're like, how'd you do that? Like, but so anyways, man, I want to say thank you because it's definitely inspirational to me. And I'm sure there's going to be hopefully at least a couple people that listen to this. So maybe we can inspire at least one more person. So, and maybe they're looking to just add another source of income in case they don't have a pension when they retire. Or maybe they're looking to actually just leave their job and purchase a high rise. Who knows? Anything in between. So hopefully something from this podcast or one of the connections made in this group is the catalyst to do that. And that's what we're here for. So you guys got anything to wrap it up? Yeah.
So I got to ask Ian, I was like, if you could give yourself your past self advice, what advice would you give yourself?
Should have done it sooner. If I had to go back to me being before I got in the fire department, I would say go to the fire department and live out your dream, right? Like that's what I got to do. And then in my career, when I had the opportunity and I thought I should have left, probably should have left when I wanted to. I don't have many regrets, but in the end, trust yourself, trust your gut, is really what I would go back and tell myself. You're right. And let it rip and don't ever second guess yourself is really what I would tell myself.
Good advice. So in the future, what's coming up for you? What do you got going on with Equity Warehouse?
Just growing the beard. We're always finding deals. We're opportunistic investors, so if we see the right deal, we have been syndicating them. You can check out some of that stuff over on equitywarehouse.com. You can see a bunch of case studies of stuff that we've done. But really we're always refining operations and being opportunistic for deals and looking to help whoever we can.
So I know Equity Warehouse is working on the warehouse in Baltimore, the Gaslight.
Yep. Gaslight Square. Yep.
Really cool project. We're talking about doing a in-person meetup in May. Ian will be hosting it. We're going to go over some of the same stuff we talked about today. There'll be a day or a couple of days event. So we'll probably have you back on before then. But in the meantime, so you want guys to reach out to you. How should they find you?
The best bet is equitywarehouse.com. You can check out, like I said, case studies there. I'm all over social media, either my name or our company. We host a podcast with a business partner of ours, Jason Balin from Hard Money Bankers, Real Estate Reserve podcast. And we talk everything from the day we started, mindset. We just finished up an interview with a local realtor doing, the outlook for 2022. We're always looking to have guests on. I'm active on all the forums, the First Responder Financial Freedom Group. I am active on there when I do get on there to cruise the internet. But I'm happy to help. You know where to find us. If you bug me enough, I might let you in the office, and I'm happy to sit down and talk with somebody that actually wants to put forth and show the effort. And Foster is right. I am looking at May 2nd. So if I put this out on video, I'm actually going to have to do it. But the first Monday in May, I'm eyeing it up, boys and girls. So stay tuned. There'll be some information coming out. Maybe we can work together with the First Responder Financial Freedom guys and see what we can put together, because the first day is going to be an entry level, and cover a lot of asset classes. I got the next 2 days are for a high level mastermind that I'm having for some of my closest real estate investor friends. So there's going to be guys from all over the country coming in, and I'm going to have them speak on May 2nd to everybody that's looking to get involved in real estate or have done a few deals. So my buddy John Farling from Columbus, Ohio, my other buddy Stratton from Salt Lake, another buddy of mine from New Mexico. So it should be a very diverse crowd.
Awesome.
Which will be good.
It'll be fun, man. This is going to be very insightful. I think we're going to do a walkthrough at the Gaslight property, which is cool to see it go from empty, rundown warehouse to turning it into an actual business and putting bodies in there and businesses in there and raising the value of it. It'll definitely be an asset for people to learn at.
The big question is, can we get Tyler to come to the East Coast?
I'll come to the East Coast.
What's that?
I'll come to the East Coast.
All right. Well, we're gonna get Tyler out here for the East Coast, so see we get him out here for the event, and that'll be good. So, but yeah, man, I'm all over the internet. You know where to find us, and I really appreciate you guys having me.
Brother, appreciate you being on here, Ian. Next time we gotta get Dan with you.
Yeah, Dan's definitely good. I think you guys should have him on in his own individual show because Dan, my business partner, lives a very debt-free lifestyle. He's big on personal financial freedom before you ever invest, and I think a lot of firemen, a lot of just whatever, for whatever reason, a lot of guys are paycheck guys, and Dan would be the right guy to have on here, and I think you guys would get a ton of value out of that.
And he's deadlifting over 500 pounds on his 40th birthday.
He is competing this weekend at Attilis Gym, which is Ian Smith's gym, who's been very vocal during the whole pandemic. But he is competing this weekend. He is 40. He just turned 40 on the 6th of February. He's competing this weekend. Hopefully he makes weight. If he makes weight and hits the weights he should hit, he should hold the Maryland state record after this weekend. So fingers crossed. We're cheering him on. Go get him, brothers.
Go get him, brothers. All right,
guys.
Thanks, Ian.
See you, boys.
Bye, gents.
All right. Take it easy, guys. Have a good one.